Why was the Royals' very favourite comedian quite simply banned from performing in front of them ever again? As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning, Neil Sean here. Nice to see you as ever, and thank you so much for joining me today. Comedy is a funny thing, isn't it? You know, as we said the other day, when you think about what you got away with or what they got away with years ago, you know, I often think of that particular scene in Love Happy from 1950 with Groucho Marx and Marilyn Monroe making her debut, where literally she just walks through the door and says to him, there's some men are following me. And he says, oh, I can't imagine why. And, you know, the raised eyebrows, a cigar. Now, oh, he'd be shot down in flames, wasn't he? This was the problem, of course, when you were appearing in front of our wonderful British monarchy. Way back in the golden days of variety, particularly in the 30s, 40s and 50s, they were superstars of comedy who truly did make you laugh. One of them was one of the biggest, quite frankly, from Brighton, Max Miller, a name possibly not necessarily known to any younger generation today, but a true titan of comedy. You see, his comedy really was this. He had a clean book and a blue book. And the bottom line is he would ask the audience, which do you want? Naturally, they said the blue book. And he wasn't really blue by today's standards, but he was, you know, tipping the edge, as it were, but all with the backing of his wonderful following, his audiences. He was able to fill theatres up and down the country, but like a lot of comedians of that particular time, didn't necessarily fill the North. You know, the North had a different idea of what they found funny. Those were people like Dave Morris, George Formby, Norman Evans. Down south, totally different. Max Miller was king, but it was also incredibly popular with the royals, including the late Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. So much so that he was left bemused as to why Max had been left off so many royal variety performances. But it truly only stemmed back to this particular incident at the 1950 Royal Variety or Royal Command performance, as they were then known. You see, the boss of the theatre was this man, Val Parnell, a bit of a titan who ran Moss Empires, the owners of the London Palladium, and very soon, of course, the spectacular TV show Sunday Night at the London Palladium. Now, one of the big stars appearing that year was the US comic Jack Benny, wonderfully funny man. Now, here's where the ruck really set in, because the bottom line was homegrown talent like Max Miller, who we knew was already very popular with the British monarchy, had been told he could only have 12 minutes, while Jack Benny was given 20 minutes. Max didn't like this and carried on, in fact, for 20 minutes, making sure that the show sadly ran over, even though the day after Parliament had to open. So you can imagine how tricky this was. More importantly, though, when he came off stage, the boss of the London Palladium, Val Parnell, said, "You'll never work in my theatres again." And quite literally after that point, he never appeared in a royal variety show. The royals kept asking every year, but there was no real response. You see, this is the power of comedy. What happened then was, as Max was relegated to second and third rate theatres, just a few months later, realising that he was box office gold and Moss Empires and Val Parnell really needed him, they relented and sort of patched up their friendship. But never enough for him to perform once again in front of the royal family, who truly loved Max Miller's rather risque humour, but not by today's standards. Now, not a lot of people know that. A very good variety friend of mine who's still alive and works on the circuit and was literally there told me that particular story. Always good to share. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.